All right, welcome to We Won't Finish This podcast, where today we're going to discuss our origin story. Who we are, why are we doing this podcast?
Yep, and I'm calling it episode 0 because it's not our normal format, but I feel like it is kind of necessary to explain why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's a weird concept. We understand that, but just being who we are, this is probably the best we could do.
It's a final resort.
Really is.
So what we're normally going to do is we're taking turns coming up with movie ideas, pitching them to each other. So one of us will be familiar with the idea. The other person will be totally in the dark, jumping in. It's fresh to them. And we're going to try to, by the end of it, give you a concept in your mind where you can be like, yeah, I feel like I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to try to write some blockbusters, maybe some dramatic pieces.
Big budget stuff.
Big budget. You know, like we're going to swing for the fences.
Yeah, but so I want to tell you kind of how we got here on this. We've been writing a long time and why we decided this for the outlet for it. We're not great writers. We're not claiming that. Where this isn't going to be one of those shows where it's somebody using their, college degree to explain what this character, whatever is. It's just us with liking to create ideas, and we wanted to share them, and this is kind of the only way to do that. And
I mean, we oftentimes find ourselves just kind of like bouncing this stuff off of each other anyways. It's just kind of always been like that. So this is just a good way to kind of put those ideas down. We're never going to get into that final phase. We've learned that, but it is fun just kind of doing the writer's room.
Yeah, basically we've got regular lives, regular jobs, and we enjoy writing, but it never gets made. So we had some chances, and we got kind of close, I guess, and we're going to explain that.
Yeah,
but it's
chances.
Yeah, but it kind of took the wind out of it after of like, oh, I've got this great idea. I'm gonna let you know we like it. Yep, there that goes. And I'm gonna let him know. We'll brainstorm it, and a lot of this is just over like Rocket League or something. Like we're just chatting, but it always ends with like, yeah, that would be cool, and like I'd like to sit down and write it, but there isn't. What's the point? Where's it going?
Yeah, and I used to live in different states, so there was obviously a distance there, and oftentimes where I would start having a good idea, even if it wasn't on Rocket League. I couldn't tell you how many times I like paced around the kitchen on the phone, just talking out an idea and just bouncing jokes off.
So we'd always, anyways, we should probably get into the story to kind of explain it, because we've been writing together about 16 years, I think, according to what we figured out. But none of it ever really goes anywhere. And we're kind of explain how that can happen. And also, maybe it will inspire somebody to not kind of shelf something for so long and to kind of realize you got to do it yourself, if you want to get something done. But we'll start it. I always liked writing. Even as a kid, I'd write different versions of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears and, and just like kind of like make them funny or something, turn them into like comedies. And I would do, sketches in high school. I was in video production class, so I had all the equipment and the computers and cameras. And this was, 2002, 2003. And, everybody didn't have a smartphone in their pocket. I couldn't get anything done unless I was in this classroom, essentially, and using their stuff. And graduated in 2004 and pretty much lost access to all that stuff, pursued different things that had nothing to do with video.
Yeah, high school really gate-kept.
Yeah. And so anyways, I just kind of got in other things. The creative stuff was gone. My buddies that I was making these sketches with, they're all, doing other stuff, or some of them were younger and still in school. And I think you said you had similar.
Yeah. All throughout school, I especially in like the earlier, like middle school, I remember we actually had like a public speaking class, which obviously an elective. So I actually excelled in that. I got A's in it every single time. What's funnier is I get to high school. I remember I had a leadership class, bombed it, didn't take it seriously at all. And I kind of relate those two because they had kind of like a similar feel. You had to kind of take charge of something. Essentially, it was just kind of like it was a similar school work. So totally bombed that. But, like I kind of learned from like the public speaking aspects where I had to kind of like write some speeches, at least in that part, that I actually kind of enjoyed doing that. And you brought up, kind of like the rewriting a fairy tale. one of my earliest ones I remember being like just basically the big bad wolf, three little pigs, and it was just with dinosaurs. That's where I was at. It was dinosaurs. They were cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, New York Times bestseller. Clearly,
Well, that could be one of our episodes.
Could be.
But yeah, 2004. Pretty much that was the end of that, and then what was it? 2006 probably. I get a message on MySpace from a guy that was in the video production class with me. He was working at an animation website in Chicago and sent me their link. And it was just kind of a like, I don't know, those websites around then that just had their own kind of generic characters and stuff. It was
not quite strong bad.
Yeah, but it was good enough. And anyways, he was like, we're looking for writers. We need ideas. We pay people for this. I always liked writing with you. Like you were funny back then. What do you got? And I hadn't written in a long time. I was living in a house where we didn't have any money. All our money went to weed and stuff. And we went to, so I was living with this guy. We started just kind of brainstorming things. And I see you have a little description here written. What would you describe the first idea as?
Oh man. So I still remember one of our first ideas we put down was just basically the lamest superhero you could possibly imagine. Like literally his power is he could just kind of hover like a foot off the ground, if that. And like
I do remember that.
So yeah, that was kind of the basis of it, but I think we got more sidetracked with just the concept of a Joe Rogan character, which we literally, I think, sent an email to Joe Rogan at the time for him to play our Kramer Batman.
You gotta think this wasn't Joe Rogan podcast Joe Rogan. This was Fear Factor Joe Rogan, where he was just clearly high as fuck on Fear Factor.
Right.
So we kind of took that character and put him in. I remember for some reason he would wear a Batman mask.
Yeah,
Batman mask, drive a beat up Cadillac.
Around. Yeah, exactly. Like it would just misfire all the time. That's how you knew he was
but
there.
That ended up kind of branching off into an idea where it was kind of loosely just based on us. We lived in a shitty neighborhood. All the houses were run down. We rented from a slumlord. Just crazy things. And then
our life was just stupid.
But there was the comedy in that. It was, to us, it was very funny that you had to put up a shower rod holder to keep the dishwasher closed enough for it to run. And what other ones did we have?
Oh man, like the green blanket over
his curtains.
His curtains. Well, we had a green blanket. I remember that. The carpet.
I remember the furnace sounded like a car crash every time. I mean, the guy, like, literally one of the places we moved in on this, we lived in two places on the same street. And the first one was just infested with fleas when we moved in. And then the guy tried to blame it on us. And it was like, it was a whole, everybody over there sucked.
Yeah, petrified, dog feces in the basement that were just left for us. And then we were told they were ours, even though we didn't have a dog.
Yeah, everything got blamed on you, even though you've been there a week. And but anyways, it was, so it was kind of like the comedy in that mixed with kind of a stoner odd couple thing. But anyways, it birthed a new idea that we really enjoyed writing. And it was very funny. And looking back on it now, it's actually nostalgic to me of like, it reminds me of living in those places and stuff. But we enjoyed it. And then I'm messaging with this guy. I'm sending him stuff. He's telling me like, yeah, this is great. This is great. This is better than some of the stuff we're paying for already. And then just nothing. Got no response. And this is on his like email or whatever. And then I look him up on MySpace and his account's just gone. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm not really in contact with, he was a grade younger than me. We had kind of different mutual friends other than this class. And I just didn't know what the fuck happened. So we just kept writing, being like, well, he'll message back.
It was just fun at that point. Well, like we just enjoyed doing it.
It was a project we enjoyed and we wanted to see this through. But then it just came to find out that he was kind of doing multiple things. One of them was his band. His band, hit, and they, so he dropped the animation thing, went out to LA or whatever. I don't really know the whole story on that, but went and rode that wave, and I don't blame him. But and I think he kind of changed his persona and his name along with it, and I think that's why the MySpace. Like, I don't think he didn't respond. I think he literally just deleted those accounts.
Yeah, just deleted them, and he was moving on to something else. You can't blame him.
Yeah, it's like you create. If you're creating this persona online, you kind of got to scrub yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Prior.
Yeah, you're not going to have your government name, also out there.
Yeah, you don't really want people to dive down that. So I feel like it's, it is what it is, but we kept writing it. And then, let's see, wrote some other stuff that we kind of pursued that. One of them was a movie. One of them was like a TV series.
Yeah.
But another cartoon thing that was kind of always our humor is that live action, I think it would just be too...
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Silly.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It'd be like the Power Rangers, but from when we were kids.
Yeah.
Way worse.
So at this point we're writing, and I think we tried doing it ourselves, where we were like, oh, what software is it? And let's figure it out. And like, I can't even draw my penmanship is awful. I can't even draw an A. And we tried like Toon Boom Studio, things like that. We could do basic things.
Yeah, I could like kind of draw in it, but like as soon as I tried to move anything, it's just like completely off the rails. Like it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, and I just don't have any kind of visual artistic abilities like that anyways. So we always knew it had to be for somebody else. And plus we were already writing for competent animators. And this was something that it wouldn't, it shouldn't matter. Like, there weren't really many limitations. It's animation. They could figure it out.
Yeah, we
didn't
would
have
have
to look great.
accepted pretty much anything, however it would look. Like, it'd be fine.
But it's also very tedious and a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And we're we're rough draft. The fact that we were putting in 5th drafts on a cartoon episode was asking us a lot, but we did it.
We're run with the rough draft kind of guys.
Yes. But so we continued that out. Didn't really work out. I had a friend at one point. At this point, I moved to another city. I'm over an hour away. Don't talk all the time. And then I had a roommate who, I was just in passing like, yeah, look at this stuff we wrote. He read through it. He's like, this is great. I want to animate this. I can animate. And I had no idea he could animate, or, I hadn't lived with him that long. I just moved into town. And I remember he did like a pencil sketch of one of the characters. I wish I would have kept it or whatever, but
so that'd be a good memento.
It was awesome, and I was really pumped about it. And then he just never did any animation beyond that. And I like at this point I've called this other guy. I'm like, we got an animator. It's not
like the first clickbait.
It kind of was a rug pull.
Yeah,
he rug pulled us, and there's a few of these in this story. But anyways, so we that just kind of didn't pan out. Ended up being an awful roommate, and I totally lost touch with him. Kind of hope I never see him again. But it's one of those. So it's it just never went anywhere, and it is what it is. But what do you got next year? This looks like yours.
Oh yeah. So now getting into just some of the animators here, like I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So this next story, it's there. It goes a little in depth. This is a weird time in our lives. So, and just kind of start this out here, we have no animosity towards anybody in this story. Nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, not at all.
Everybody's a good person. We really do feel that. I like everybody. We probably will mildly rip on a few people here. It's not to be it's not to be mean or anything like that, but it was a silly time. People did silly things.
It's a silly story.
It is. It really is. So I mean, kind of jumping into this now. We obviously had this idea for the cartoon, and eventually my brother's friend came into some money. And, we had kind of talked about this before, me and this guy over here. And, and my brother was kind of aware of it. So it kind of came up. And I believe it really came up in the bigger conversation as more of just kind of like joking around. I didn't think this thing would go anywhere. So kind of jumping a little bit ahead here, we end up meeting with him because he's interested in like making this cartoon. Now, as we had kind of talked about it, he wanted to be like, essentially a producer, which, that's kind of what they do. Makes sense. They could put a little bit of money behind it. We had a funny idea already. He really wanted to voice a character, which I get it. I can see that. He really wanted to voice a character. But it was just kind of weird. And I know you had an interesting experience with this. So, we'll kind of, we'll go to where now we've kind of agreed at this point. No, actually, sorry. Like I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. Why don't you tell him what part of the deal he tried to get with you as part of the bigger arrangement here?
We gotta go back a little bit because when we were living at one of these houses we were telling you about, the shitty ones, we made a deal with the landlord at one point to get the flooring done, take it off the rent, that kind of thing. So I know this guy who came into the money, we'll call him the investor, as the guy that was sleeping on our couch, during the night while he did our floor during the day and woke up with shots and, whatever. Yeah. And, we move out of the house, years go by. This is now 2010, I think. And I get a call and it says, "Hey, the cartoon's back on. I got an investor." I say, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "The guy on the couch that woke up doing shots and does flooring for houses like that is looking to invest into the cartoon and make it happen." So now I'm like, that's great, because you had told me previously that you had a couple of animators, but it was kind of like, yeah, but you got to pay these guys. It's very tedious, long work.
Right.
And,
and we didn't have any equipment. We
had no money.
Nothing whatsoever.
Yeah. We had no money, no knowledge of this, anything. So he's telling me that this guy is going to make it happen. He's now loaded, and we're going to make this happen. And I was just kind of like, cool, yeah, he can do a voice, whatever. I don't care any of that. And then we
would have accepted almost anything.
I had an old restaurant booth in our house that was out of a closed down place that I had obtained, and he was obsessed with it. He thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I remember that was one of the stipulations. We went to this meeting. We'll have to get to the meeting.
We'll get there.
So I got to drive into town. It's like I said, I live far away now, so it's a little drive. I get there for this what's supposed to be a business meeting, and now I've told a new crop of roommates about how I'm making a cartoon. I've told everybody at this point. We had the first animator, thought I went around town trying to make it a local thing, finding all these local bands. Can I use your music for my cartoon?
Yeah,
dozens of people that I talked their ear off about this cartoon we were making that just never happened. And then, so for years, you run into them, and they're like, "Hey, what about that cartoon?" Because they might have been pumped on it too.
Yeah.
And it's not happening.
Sorry, it didn't happen.
But so, anyways, it's on again, and I'm pumped, and I'm telling my new roommates, and they're like, "I doubt it." They don't believe this for a second that we have an investor.
Why would you?
Yeah, I've read them the scripts and everything. They're like, "Yeah, pretty funny," but somebody's putting real money towards this.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's paying.
Yeah, somebody who's earned money is willing to give it to you. And so anyways, I make the drive, and we get there. We go to this apartment complex where this guy's still living, and we're waiting in the parking lot. He's late. He's not there. And then we get the call, "Hey, can you meet me at Walmart? I bought too much stuff that fits in my car." Mind you, he just obtained a lot of money. Yeah. And this is where he's at. He's his apartment complex in Walmart.
Yeah. Can you bring an additional vehicle? I have too much stuff.
I have too many Walmart goods for one BMW. So we go there, meet him in the parking lot. He comes out with one of the flatbed carts, that the workers use to haul like a dozen TVs. And he has all this stuff. He's loading it into both cars. And then he realizes that oh man, where's my pinky ring? And I'm thinking, like, that's funny. This guy wears pinky rings, but he's losing it over these pinky rings.
He noticed he was missing the pinky rings.
He's looking around the parking lot, and he keeps telling us, "You don't want to know what I just spent on these pinky rings." And we're like,
"No, we don't."
Wasn't even curious.
You're right.
But so he goes in there to look. He goes, "Maybe I took him off to pick up whatever." He goes in there. Now we're just standing in a Walmart parking lot waiting for a pinky ring recon mission.
Pinky ring emergency.
Yeah, it was. And he comes back out, and we see him. He's adjusting his pinky rings or whatever, and we're like, "Oh, cool, you found him." He goes, "No, I didn't find them. I just I bought these in there to tide me over until I can go buy the other ones. You don't want to know what I paid for those." And I'm just like, "All right, that's interesting." You know?
So a little weird, but all right.
Yeah, we go to his place. I mean, it was as lavish as an apartment in that complex could be.
Yeah, it's, honestly, like, probably, as far as apartments are concerned, it's in the mid-range. It's nothing special. But big building, lots of people there.
Yes. And $15,000 couch.
Yeah.
Guitars on the wall. I'm like, "Oh, you play guitar?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to start." So he just went and cleaned out Guitar Center, and
he got everything that looked great, and he brought it over, and
everything he ever wanted.
Everything he ever wanted. He was going to get to it.
So anyways, we get there, we talk business. It really came down to, you got a character in there for me, and
Yeah, we did.
He wanted the booth. He wanted my restaurant booth. He wanted it bad.
He did. He wanted the booth. It was part of it. But the funniest part about this to me is that you stonewalled him.
I wouldn't offer it up. I couldn't give him the booth.
The booth was off the table.
I wouldn't have minded selling it. I think he wanted it too bad.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, you're pushing too hard for this.
Yeah, he just, you knew what you had in value. Over, with how bad he wanted it, supply and demand was there, and you didn't budge. I give you a lot of credit.
We're talking about an authentic restaurant booth in a $600 a month rental house.
Yes.
With 3 bedrooms. It's pretty high-end stuff.
Yeah, it is. Totally, I don't think there was any popsicle sticks holding up the table or anything. I
had to add a lot of screws to it to keep it from shifting. But yeah, it was a good booth.
So yeah, we're meeting with him there, and it really did come down to, he wanted the booth, and he didn't get it. To massive credit here, and. So we kind of get a little bit further.
Credit.
So we get a little bit further. We finally we agree. We're gonna do this thing, booth or not, apparently. So but at that point, we have to figure out how much do we actually need, and we're not getting any specifics of any kind of money or anything. It really was not very much.
Yeah, I never signed anything, but he did hand me a laptop computer.
Yes.
Brand new in the box, and say, okay, go write this cartoon, which we had done a lot of writing already.
Yeah, we had. And, and these laptops, I'm going to say it too, these were nothing special. For
me, it was pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah. 20-something-year-old me, that was great. I used the hell out of that thing, but yeah, none of this was anything special. So I want to want to say that there's nothing. It wasn't some massive investment. So but after that, we get these things. Actually, when I'm at the store getting them, they didn't even want to sell them to us. The workers just they thought something was up. And they had to go ask another guy who had asked somebody in the back.
Because he was fiddling with his pinky rings too much. They were
Probably.
Don't trust this guy. He's exploiting our clearance sale.
He's walking in with Walmart pinky rings. He wants 4 of these things. I don't know. They just got a bad feeling, and they had to call the general manager probably. And he's yeah, sell them. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's stop checking out his awesome Walmart pinky rings and just give him his laptops and get him out of there. So we get them. We get these laptops, and then it's all right, the work begins. So
for real,
yeah,
it was
for real.
We have animators. We have this. So once somebody hands you a laptop, when you're at that income level that we were at the time, it's pretty
dead
real.
Serious.
You're somebody just gave me a computer. This is going to keep coming. And this thing is going to get made, And where did you get with your animators? I think that was our next hurdle.
Yeah, it was. We had to figure out, okay, well, what names do we have in our back pocket that can do this for us? And, there had been some conversations already. Around that time, I literally even, this is where cell phones are at the time. I literally carried around a notepad, a small one in my work shirt where I would jot down ideas. And people knew that too.
I'd written things on Little Caesars receipts before, 100%.
But yeah, so people kind of knew I was doing this already, and I had talked about some ideas and and whatever. So I had a few people that I knew from where I worked that wanted to do it, and as soon as I had actual laptops, they were oh, all right, we're actually doing this thing. So. Anyways, these guys were they were all silly in their own right. Good guys. I enjoyed working with them. They all they were some characters.
I think you want your animators to be silly guys, though.
Really, you do. And they didn't all quite fit the bill, but they were kind of you look at them yeah, you could animate something, So but the first guy that I kind of knew was an animator. This guy, he was kind of he especially looked like an animator. So very, very meek, glasses, just kind of the whole skinny, dorky kind of vibe. Good dude. Love the guy. So he was the first one, and he actually showed me a couple of things he had made, I think through Flash animation.
Yeah, I remember you showing me some Flash ones that were pretty simple, and then I saw one that looked really detailed.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he was doing. The arms were just spinning or something. It was very crazy. But it was, we at the time we had built our own studio in your apartment, like walk-in storage closet.
Yeah, so walk-in storage closets. We lined it with egg cartons.
Yeah, did our best to pad it up for the sound, and
I think we bought mattress pads too.
I think we recorded like a handful of scenes from the first episode and gave it to him. Because mind you, we had a season, I mean, at the very least, mapped out. It was going to be like, it was episodic, but it was chronological, where they did, the stories were canon when something happened.
Yeah, one of the things that we recorded, I still remember, was like we were copying essentially Home Alone at this point, doing a parody of it, and I had to do the Uncle Frank in the Shower song from memory. And if any of you can try to remember what that song is, go ahead and try and sing it to yourself and see where you get.
Well, I think it's a real song. Some people,
I'm pretty sure it is.
Some people probably know that song, and they're like, "What is this guy talking about?" But in my head, I know what you're saying, because it's just me. There's no real words. It's just kind of a until he starts yelling at Kevin. But
yeah, exactly. So this was the first guy. So I actually saw something there.
I remember you had shown me a few things, and it still seemed like we're doing this.
Yeah, even with that, I was like, oh man, that's hope right there. Like that's amazing. That's more than we could ever do. Yeah. So that was looking great. And then the next guy, he was like this guy didn't quite fit the bill. He was more of just kind of like a kind of a little bit taller, kind of like stockier maybe. He did like boxing, so he didn't quite fit the bill of an animator. But he and I talked, and he kind of told me he was like essentially kind of a computer geek, which hey, great. Like he likes building computers. He had done some animation. I can't remember if I even saw anything, but at this point in my life, it's like animator number 2. I got him. So we got our next one.
And they knew each other. They were working together essentially, or exactly. Had a rapport with each other.
Everybody knew each other so far, and and this guy so he had a pretty goofy personality, and so one of the things we would constantly do, and at the movie theater, what we would do there is we would see the posters for some of the new movies, and he was a couple of times that we would see something like this, we would kind of comment on it, and maybe somebody looks like it. This one in particular, we all had a great laugh at. He looked dead like this character, and I still remember us bringing him over to him and just be like, "Hey, check this out. We think this looks like you." And he was like, "Yeah, it kind of does."
You sent me this picture, and it's this right here. This is the guy. So you were at work, and it was when you were working at the movie theater, and you saw this poster for a Horton Hears a Who. You told me
Horton Hears a Who,
and one of your workers was there, and somebody said, "Hey, you look like that guy," and he said, "Yep."
Yeah, he said, "Yes, I do." And just so anybody listening out there, it's not an elephant. I don't know what this thing is.
It's kind of like a furry hippo.
Yeah,
like a multicolored
kind of
furry hippo. Right. I don't really know what that would be, but anyways, that's tragic.
Yeah, it kind of is. Love the guy, but that's kind of how he looked, and he was like, "Yeah, that's me." So
it seemed like maybe he already knew that. Maybe he did. Did he enjoy the movie more?
Probably not.
Feeling represented?
Probably not. Kind of expected him to probably miss that one, but so anyway, so now we're getting into the next guy, and he had his own mannerisms about him that he was kind of he was very monotone, but hilarious in with doing the monotone. So I felt like it was almost like a bit, but so this guy, we early on, we're like, "Hey, you look like Kenny G," and he was like, "Yeah, I kind of do." So it just literally became his name. I remember I even printed him out a name tag that said Kenny G, and he wore it.
Okay, enough about what these guys look like. What happened?
So as we keep going along here, so these guys are getting to work, and I remember it was meeting 1, maybe meeting 2. Kenny G probably abruptly was just like, "Yeah, I can't do this." It was like, there's no way I can do this, and we weren't expecting it
based on skill.
Yeah, I honestly I don't know.
Too much to take.
He just was like, "You know what? Not for me. I can't do it. Here you go. Here's your laptop." And I was like, "Oh,
okay." Well, all right. So then he just walked out playing a flute.
Yeah, just basically kind of walked right out, hit the saxophone, and I rode off into the sunset. And Yeah,
enough.
honestly, like, but with the way things ended up going, smartest guy in the room. You know, got to respect Kenny G, smartest guy in the room.
Yeah,
Walked away.
We should contact him. Maybe he could help us with this podcast.
Yeah, I kind of want some financial advice from him.
Yeah. So, and then I see you have a note that just says divorced parents guy.
Yeah. So, the first guy, kind of like
I'm a divorced parents guy,
Yeah.
so don't think that I don't know how that defines him so much.
So as we keep going, like, he didn't drop out right away. He just ends up at one point just kind of abruptly telling us, like, yeah, my parents got divorced. I can't do the cartoon anymore. It was like, oh.
So they divorced because of the cartoon.
It maybe,
You're tearing my family apart.
The smartest parents in the room. Like
everybody who backed away from this is very smart.
Yeah, I mean, they really were. They just kind of washed their hands of it. It's like, You know what? I suffered through a divorce, but at least I don't have any ties to this cartoon. That didn't happen. And the other guy, honestly, I couldn't even tell you. He just kind of dropped off face.
And we did see a handful of things, and they contained like the audio we sent them and everything, and it could have happened. I feel like if they were on board.
Right.
But what I think it really is that people that spend that much time learning to animate and learning the tools and stuff, they probably have their own projects too. And that's where it really does take money. And that's where this one, well, first of all, when the whole Chicago animation website thing, that seemed like it was real and that we were going to be getting paid for it. This turned into, we got a laptop, but, I wasn't expecting any money until maybe the thing was actually profitable.
Yeah,
I never thought that.
As these guys were working, like, they made money, like, out of the little bit we had, they got paid. They did do some stuff, like, yeah, and like, so I kind of took on a lot of the character design. I started designing like the backgrounds. So, we actually had some stuff to show.
We tried it, but it's a lot more complicated than just spending a lot of time trying to learn. Like, you have to dive right in, I think, especially for what we had written. If what we should have done at that point is just shrunk it way down and been like, we're going to do like 30-second shorts or something. And they could be heavily dialogue based where there isn't even a lot of moving. And we should have started there. At that point, we should have just been like, look, people back out too much. It is what it is.
Yeah,
it's not working.
Some great hindsight. It really is.
Well, that's kind of the point of this, is that we had plenty of chances to pivot.
Yeah.
And we always stuck to
steadfast.
We're not the animators, and this is the product. And I think that was our biggest problem, is that I love that cartoon series. It was, like I said, it's nostalgic for me because it literally reminds me of living in those houses and stuff, which I do look fondly back on.
I do too.
And it's just kind of one of those, we were like, this is great. It was that kind of sunken cost fallacy kind of thing where we should have completely pivoted, come out with something that's really short, thrown it out on Vine or whatever was popular at the time, and done like 10-second cartoons and learned there, and then 10 years down the road
then jump into a 20 to 30 minute animation. So I mean, so these guys, they all kind of dropped off over a while. It wasn't, instant. Besides Kenny G, he just bailed immediately, which is still hilarious. So we hung on, honestly, for probably a couple of months. It's something in that range.
That's kind of how this always went, is we would write kind of for fun, or, and then we'd get a lead and we'd pursue that, and then we'd start writing really hard, and we're communicating all the time about it and working on stuff. And then it would just kind of fizzle out. We're like, okay, nothing's really happening with this. It's not going anywhere. And plus, we're like from, small town Midwest. There's nowhere to really pitch this locally.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't really pitch.
Not moving to New York.
You can't really pitch a script with people want to see a final product. If we were actually animating something, even the shorts, and putting them out, and somebody was like, hey, your 10 seconds shorts are great.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I want to put together 10-minute episodes with you, or like that. That's how a path we could have went on, is tried to produce ourselves and just kept it real small. But I feel like our sights were set so high because we were pretty much multiple times told, you're the writer, like, just write it and it will get made, And that's where we kind of got stuck. And then from there, I mean, it fizzles out again. What did you end up telling the investor? I mean, when it finally, hey, this isn't going to happen.
So that's the thing, is like, I feel like it kind of coincided. because we had an agreement to where like he was actually going to give us more money, and then like these guys weren't doing anything, and we got to the point where he actually contacted me, and it was basically like, yeah, there's no more money. And this is after he had offered additional funds like a few times, and I refused. I just didn't want it because like we were
just not
slow.
we're just not seeing the progress.
Right, we were, and so everything was moving very, very slow. So that's one good thing I kept control of is the guys weren't doing the work. I wasn't paying them. So it was I was giving them money for the work I was seeing. But it took a long time.
This was also before Fiverr and things like that, because realistically we could have just went above the animators' heads, or not gotten some local guys we knew that they had never done something of this magnitude either, I'm sure, and we could have went on Fiverr or something and just found somebody, or like I think Venture Bros, that cartoon, they outsourced it to like Hong Kong or something, and I think like they got the whole first season for like 10 grand or something. But then you have issues there. I guess their problem was there was a bunch of like language barrier breakdowns where like these guys would animate something and they'd get it and they'd be like, that's not what we wanted, and then they'd have to try to reconcile that. So
we
it
weren't
took
working
them like
with 10 grand, and we were
it took
early
them,
20s.
It took them years, you know what I mean? But we could have done the pilot episode, maybe with the money from the investor. But we had no idea. Venture Bros wasn't a thing at that time. I had never heard any stories like that. There was no, I mean, we could have tried to hire somebody or something, but it just seemed like we had people. So then after that, I'm working at a restaurant at this point, an Outback Steakhouse, and it was a lot better back then. I'll tell you that. And there was a guy there. I'd only worked there a couple of weeks, and we got talking, and I came up that I was like, yeah, I wrote this cartoon with my buddy. He goes, oh, I'm an animator, and I started telling him all the stories of like, oh, we had an animator, but it fell through, blah, blah, blah. And he seemed really into it. And I gave him some of the writings, and he was like, yeah, that's cool. I can do it. And I was already kind of skeptical because it was just one guy, but he was actually going to school for that. And I was like, maybe he could use this as a project or something, like, like turn it in for something. Right. And so I thought maybe it could happen, but that was very short-lived because I thought about this more after I talked to you about it recently. I think you met this guy, but it's very unmemorable because I don't even remember you being there, but he wouldn't have come over to meet me at home to not talk to you. Because I think I remember setting this up where he was like, yeah, I wanted you to meet him so we could kind of talk about things and just kind of like really let you know it was real, because we had been hurt so many times, people. We had been hurt so many times.
Yeah, pride is shattered.
For me to call him and say, hey, it's back on, it's like, yeah, right, So I was like, no, come meet this guy, whatever. And I remember he knew that I was like a pothead, and he didn't smoke weed or anything. And then he came over to the house. I don't even remember talking to him about anything cartoon related, but I remember being on my front porch and him just being like constantly bringing up like we should try to find some coke. And I was kind of thinking like either this guy will do a lot of animating or no animating if we do business with him. And then it kind of solved itself because it was like a week later he was trying to get out of work for like a football game or something, and to watch it, and he faked. I wasn't even there, but the way it was explained was so hilarious, was that he faked passing out on the back line when nobody was there, like, but knocked over way too many things for it to be realistic. Like, it was like they heard just a crazy long commotion.
The whole dolly of pots and pans.
They go back there
over.
And he's like laying down with his arm through a chair, acting like what happened, and it's like, okay, buddy, go watch your football game. Get out of here. But and then I think he didn't work there much longer. Like it was very clear this guy isn't going to get anything done. But yeah, so that pretty much ended like the traditional, the pure we can animate it the way we want it thing. And then we got even pretty sloppy where once again we were still trying to hold on to that idea of that one cartoon series we loved.
We loved it.
We started playing GTA Online. We noticed that hey, the bounce move when they talk, and we have all these customization options, and we kind of like bastardized the idea.
Oh yeah,
just to make it work. Because now the PS4s had video capture stuff, and I could edit it right on a PlayStation. And I was even thinking like, oh, maybe that's where we could stand out. Is it'll be like this is the thing made completely on a PlayStation. I'm sure there's thousands of things like that.
Yeah, thousands.
And we didn't get anywhere. We made a video
a little intro.
and and it was fun to make, but it wasn't going anywhere. We never actually sat down and wrote anything. And then we started playing a game called DayZ, where a lot of people do role playing and stuff. And we kind of realized, like, oh, this isn't as lame as it looks if you don't take it seriously. Like, if you're taking it seriously, it's pretty lame.
Oh yeah, seriously, it's bad. But the RP,
we just noticed people were creating characters and backstories and stuff like that, and we just started coming up with shticks. And you come up with a bit and you go and run it on them. It's kind of like Borat, like it's like, hey, I have a bit, but they're not in on it. Let's go see how they handle it and get the footage or whatever. And it was just nothing but compromise, and we didn't really get anywhere. We finally hit a point where we were going to write a book.
Yep, we got to a book at this point.
We thought we could write a
novel. We gave up pictures altogether
because we always did our writing. Yes, exactly. And we still have this writing, and I do like the writing, but we don't finish it.
Yeah,
we don't
we're
finish
terrible
things.
at it.
So we're to a point now where. Or no, we didn't even get there, to the Dreams for PS4. That was an animation program that was supposed to make it easy enough that it was a PlayStation game. And it looked hopeful. I even got into the beta early. I was super pumped on it. And, I was good at creating objects and scenes and things like that. But when it came to just things moving, I started making a short that was nothing to do with the other project. And it was good until I got to a point where a guy was supposed to fall down. And I did it so many times. I tweaked it as many ways I could. And I just realized, I was like, look, I can make the characters, I can whatever, but it's like, make them walk, make a ball bounce, and make it not look crazy.
You got way further than I did. Like, well, I tried my hand at sculpting, and I'm awful at it. And I'm terrible at following directions too, because you sent me a template and I didn't use it. And then just made it somewhere else, and like, yeah, this looks okay. You're just like,
I was infuriated you didn't use the template. I spent so much time making it as easy as possible. I was like, just paste over this, and the eyes will work, the mouth will work, everything will be good. And then you just started sending me these sculptures.
It's like, hey, take a look at this.
Well, I remember you sending me like a head, and you were like, this is a head we can use for this character. And I go, you didn't use the template. I go, nothing moves. The eyes don't blink. The mouth doesn't move. And you go, you can make it move. And I go, I don't know how to make that move. Like, neither of us knew what we were doing. We were trying. But you just got to a point where I was like, nobody's going to watch this. Like, it looks so bad that you won't even give it a chance, And maybe the same for this podcast. Who knows? But
yeah.
But either way, that was kind of our last, okay, we're going to do it ourselves. And it's too much. Even the shorts.
Yeah, it really was. Like, we're just not good at that technical stuff there. We're just not. We've learned our limitations.
I can sit and animate it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be jarring for the viewer, and they're going to be like, this is crap.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch this. And that's the presentation of it. And especially, like, so let's say I did have a camera and everything right out of high school and the video editing stuff. I feel like that was early enough where, like, YouTube was kind of just hitting the mainstream.
Yeah.
And the content wasn't great. But now, I mean, dude, a 15-year-old kid knows more about, lighting. Look, if you're on YouTube, obviously,
seriously,
than I do. And it's, they know how to do sound and all this kind of stuff. Like, I had to do a lot of research just to get to this point right here with the stream that we're doing, which, by the way, we're streaming on YouTube and Twitch live. And then you can also, if you want to see video, you can watch that later on the YouTube channel. I've set up, we've got Instagram, TikTok, we're YouTube, Twitch, you can find us at We Won't Finish This, and on Twitter we are at We Won't Finish. But that the technical stuff, that's all new for me even at this point. We've been working full-time jobs. We don't have, didn't really have hobby time, and the hobby time we did have, I think we just put into video games and wasting productivity time.
Yeah, we just talk over, video games and stuff. And at this point, like, I still lived across the country, and we're getting into like the Dreams phase, and but
that
at
was
this
the
point,
PlayStation game.
Yeah, and at this point when we were barely into Dreams, and then COVID hit, and that's like that.
COVID was kind of right when Dreams came out.
Yeah,
I think
it really
came out
was.
in like February, and then a pandemic happened, and I was like, we can do this cartoon.
Yeah, you would think, but like at that point, I lost my job because of COVID. Like I had only worked for, at that point, one company my whole life.
But you weren't in, like, oh, everybody gets to stay home. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to learn to play guitar mode. You were in, now I'm living across the country from my family. The job's not here anymore. I need to start looking for jobs. I need to look for living, change situations.
Exactly. So none of that was working out for me. So, like rent wasn't going away, like I did end up in a situation to where like I was still paying the bills, but I was still kind of watching the old place I was working at. But like I wasn't paying any taxes at the time because it was essentially like, contractor work. So like I just did not like the situation whatsoever. I had no idea when things were going to open back up. So like it was rough times, and like so getting into trying to make.
And meanwhile, I was on the other end, and I was already working from home, and it didn't change much for me. So I'm like, yeah, let's do a cartoon. You can do it now. And he's like, fuck off. Like I got a lot going on.
I am not in a mental state to start working on a cartoon.
But to get us to where we are here now, what it really comes down to is I really like brainstorming ideas, and I like exploring those ideas, and I like kind of outlining those ideas into a movie or a series or whatever they could be. But when you start getting into later drafts and sitting and working out the technicalities of the dialogue and make it flow right, and we already said that word a page before, we don't want to make it sound repetitive, that's where it gets tedious and boring. And let's face it, we're not going to finish this thing anyways.
No, we won't finish it. Like, like I'm kind of the same way. It's like, I'm great at kind of putting some outlines together. Like I can think of some great concepts and ideas, but then when it comes to the execution, that's where it falls flat.
We just don't have the skills to make anything that anybody would ever enjoy. So I think that this format is, and maybe that's true for the podcast. You tell us. I mean, please don't. But basically, this is the outlet that I think we found that we can pull off. We can come up with the ideas. We can brainstorm it. Maybe by the end of an hour-ish episode, we might even have a rough outline that is coherent and valuable. But there's a good chance that we won't finish this podcast.
Yeah, like highly likely we won't finish this podcast, but we're going to have fun along the way.
So the shtick is that one of us will be taking turns. One of us will be coming in with a pretty well thought out concept and notes, and the other one has never heard anything about it. So it's going to be fresh to one. The other one has a lot of, they're going to kind of lead that episode. And we are hopefully going to come up with something that after you listen to us brainstorm it, you've got an image in your head, like we have an image of our old cartoon in our head, even though it's never been made. And maybe somebody can enjoy that. But at the very least, even if nobody ever watches or listens, it gives us a reason to sit and write something that we both enjoy, and a reason to get together and bounce it off each other. And, we have lives and families and stuff now. So getting together and having a few beers and doing this it's fun for us, whether you guys are here or not.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's just fun, like we're great at putting together the concepts of ideas. So we get to do the writer's room without the expectation at the end.
Yes. We're telling you up front that we won't finish the podcast.
Yeah. You'll never see this, but enjoy hearing about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we did it.
Yeah.
I think we can call that for the first one.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't finish it, but yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, check us out on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I'm also going to try to put us up on, I have to figure it out, but Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, all that stuff. You'll be able to listen there. You'll be able to watch a cleaner version of this later on YouTube. And we are also going to probably do the show every, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, monthly is kind of what we've been saying, just because we don't want to exhaust our movie ideas and try to do this to you every week and hit a point where there's nothing going on here.
Not only will we not finish this, we won't overdo it either.
I've got a couple high concept ideas, and I want to kind of keep it, keep the bar high on that. But either way, thanks for checking us out. Check out our socials, please. That's how you'll find out how to be here for the live streams if you want to do that. And after we finish the show, we plan on kind of doing a chat with the I guess a beer with the chat, and if anybody's in there and wants to say something. But if not, have a good one.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed it.